It is a blistering summer morning in January 1966. Three young children are walking down a quiet, sun-baked street in a beachside suburb of Adelaide, South Australia. They turn a corner toward Glenelg Beach, expecting absolutely nothing more than a day in the sun and the surf. The plan is simple. The morning is entirely ordinary, and they are expected to be home for lunch. But they never came home. What happened to the Beaumont children on that single, fateful day has remained one of the most haunting, deeply unsettling, unsolved mysteries in all of Australian history. No bodies were ever found, no conviction was ever made. For nearly 60 years, an entire country has wondered what happened to three young siblings who simply vanished into a crowd. In this explainer, we are going to document every known detail of a dark, enduring mystery that haunts a nation to this very day. Our setting is Somerton Park, South Australia, January 1966. This was a neighborhood defined by unremarkable, peaceful, suburban routine. The Beaumont family lived a quiet life, residing just a short, familiar walk from one of Adelaide's most popular beaches. Their mother, Nancy, had given the children permission that morning to catch the bus to Glenelg alone. It was a trip they had taken several times that summer without a single incident. There was absolutely no reason for fear. Jane was only 9 years old. Arnna was 7. Little Grant was just 4. As the eldest, Jane carried the quiet, expected responsibility of looking after her siblings. Now, in the context of today's world, allowing a 9-year-old to escort a 4-year-old on a public bus to a crowded beach might seem completely unimaginable to you. But we cannot view this case through a modern lens. To truly understand the gravity of this disappearance, we have to understand the world they left behind. You see, a 1960s Australian childhood was defined by routine, unsupervised freedom. It wasn't negligence, it was the standard right of a trusting society. Children walked to school alone, they played outdoors for hours without adult eyes on them, and they took short bus trips by themselves. Safely navigating public spaces was just an expected part of growing up. Their journey to Glenelg Beach that morning was a testament to a safe, innocent era, an era that was about to be shattered forever. The timeline of that morning unfolds with agonizing innocence. At 10 o'clock, they boarded the short bus ride to the shore. By 11, witnesses were called seeing the three siblings playing on the sand. They were swimming, they were laughing, building sandcastles at the water's edge. It was a picture of perfect childhood joy. But as midday approached, the narrative takes a dark, irreversible turn. They were sighted interacting with an unidentified stranger. Multiple witnesses observed a man. He was tall, slim, in his mid-30s with light blonde hair. He didn't look like a threat. He was friendly, well-spoken, playing effortlessly with the children in the shallow water and later walking with them toward a row of nearby shops. This friendly facade masked a devastating threat that no one on that crowded beach could have possibly anticipated. This was a predator hiding in plain sight. When the children failed to return home for lunch, Nancy Beaumont assumed they had simply lost track of time. We all know children playing in the summer sun easily forget the hour. But as the early afternoon stretched on, and the heat of the day broke into evening, a mother's passing concern warped into suffocating dread. Her husband, Jim, returned home from work to find his wife frantic. Together, the parents desperately searched the beach and the darkening streets, their calls echoing into the night, before finally summoning the police. During the frantic initial police investigation, a single, deeply troubling clue emerged from a local baker. He recalled the siblings purchasing pies and pasties that morning, using a 1-pound note. For children given only a few loose shillings and change by their mother, this was an inexplicably large sum of money. Where had this extra cash come from? It was a terrifying anomaly that pointed directly and sickeningly to that blonde stranger. The final verified sighting carried a terrifying implication of its own. A local woman reported seeing the children walking with that exact same tall, blonde man hours later, near the shops. They were relaxed, unworried. They were even laughing. This single detail haunted investigators for decades. It meant that children trusted this man. Their natural caution had been entirely disarmed within the space of a single morning by a stranger who had seamlessly inserted himself into their lives. As night fell, a localized search exploded into one of the largest manhunts in Australian history. Hundreds of volunteers combed the vast, shifting dunes of Glenelg Beach. Police divers plunged into the black coastal waters, searching for any sign of a tragedy. The investigation expanded nationally and then internationally. But with the massive attention came endless, cruel hoaxes. Letters claiming responsibility poured in. Psychics offered useless visions, compounding the unimaginable private grief of the Beaumont parents with agonizing false leads. In the months that followed, Nancy and Jim Beaumont made repeated, heart-wrenching public appeals, their voices breaking on radio broadcasts. But beyond the sheer devastation of one family, this tragedy caused a seismic cultural shift. It marked the definitive, brutal end of unsupervised childhood freedom in Australia. For an entire generation, parents fundamentally changed how they protected their children. The innocent era of playing out of sight until the streetlights came on was gone, replaced by a lingering collective shadow of fear. Over the grueling decades, two prominent suspects emerged from the shadows of the investigation. First, Harry Phipps, a wealthy local businessman, and second, Arthur Stanley Brown, a convicted child murderer who shared loose physical similarities with the stranger on the beach and had known movements in the area. Yet despite immense scrutiny and countless interrogations, neither man could be definitively tied to the crime. The investigators were met with a complete and utter lack of physical proof. The theories surrounding Harry Phipps, however, were particularly unnerving. Decades after the disappearance, Phipps's own son came forward with a very dark childhood memory. He recalled being instructed by his father to dig a large hole in their backyard on the exact weekend the children vanished, and being sternly warned never to speak of it. Furthermore, as he grew older, he recalled the brief, unexplained appearance of children's clothing and toys at his father's factory premises during that exact same period. These haunting recollections refused to remain buried. They festered in the public consciousness until, in 2018, more than half a century after Jane, Arnna, and Grant walked to the beach, the investigation took its most dramatic turn yet. Authorities initiated a major, heavily funded excavation at the site of Harry Phipps's former factory. The mechanics of this modern dig were extensive and deeply serious. Cadaver dogs had signaled a potential grave. The nation held its breath, watching under intense media scrutiny as the heavy machinery broke ground, sparking renewed, desperate public hope that an answer might finally be unearthed. But the earth yielded nothing. Zero physical evidence, no remains, nothing to connect Phipps definitively to the case. Decades of renewed hope collapsed into dust, just as every previous lead had. And this is the unsettling perfection of the Beaumont mystery. Think about it. A crowded beach on a blistering summer day, multiple witnesses who clearly saw the children and the man, an unexplained one-pound note providing a tangible, undeniable clue, and yet, no crime scene, no bodies, no confession that ever held up to scrutiny. We have a wealth of initial clues that somehow, impossibly, evaporated into the coastal air, leaving nothing but a dark void. For the parents, time became a lifelong, agonizing sentence. They left Jane's bedroom untouched for years, frozen in 1966, holding onto a sliver of impossible hope. In 2018, that final major excavation yielded nothing but empty earth, and in 2019, Nancy Beaumont passed away, enduring over 5 decades of waiting for answers that never arrived, a grief that few human beings could ever comprehend. Today, the case remains formally open. It sits in the archives of the South Australian Police, resisting every single attempt at closure for nearly 60 years. Periodically, new tips will surface, prompting brief flurries of investigation, but all of them end in silence. We are left to wonder if the truth was buried too deep, decades after the evidence decayed, or if the answer is simply a tragic moment of extended trust that history can never undo. A morning at the beach, a friendly stranger, and then a silence lasting nearly 60 years. Based on the timeline, the baffling clues, and the tragic lack of evidence we have explored in this explainer today, what do you think happened to the Beaumont children? Share your theory in the comments below.